Representative Carlson, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, your district, and your professional career.
Well, a little bit about my personal background. I'm a native Minnesotan, and my professional career was that of a teacher. I taught social studies for 34 years and ran for the legislature in 1972 for the first time and was fortunate enough to be elected and have been re-elected ever since. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my family. I am married and my wife's name is Carol, and we had 3 children, 1 daughter and 2 sons, and they're all adults, and we now have 6 grandchildren. And so we thoroughly enjoy when we have some free time and so on with spending time with the grandchildren. A little more difficult with 3 of them. They happen to live in northern Kentucky, but fortunately 3 of them live here in Minnesota. And they range in age from 5 is the youngest, and the oldest actually graduated from high school and is in the United States Marines.
And can you tell us a little bit about your district?
Yes, I represent a suburban district. I represent about half the city of Crystal, the vast majority of New Hope, and then I have 3 precincts in Plymouth. So it's a suburban district. The parts of those communities that I have are fully developed suburbs. There's a little bit of growth yet from time to time in all 3 of the cities, but it's fairly limited.
What are your top legislative priorities?
I've always been very interested in education. When you look at my history in the legislature, when I was first elected, I was very involved with healthcare issues. And then a few years later, that evolved into more and more involvement with education. And for many years, I chaired one education committee or another. Currently, I chair the House Ways and Means Committee, and our charge is basically the state budget. We set the funding guidelines, if you will, or we call them targets, for each of the funding divisions. So we determine with the state budget how much would be spent on health and human services, how much would be spent on education, and you go right on down the list of the different funding committees. So that's our main role early in the session. So these days, having a good, solid, balanced budget is a major priority, but I still remain interested in other issues. And as I mentioned, education, healthcare, the environment has always been an important issue in my view as well. And if anything, that's growing in importance in recent years.
What is the most difficult aspect of being a legislator?
I think the most difficult aspect is time management, quite frankly. During the legislative session, it becomes a very busy place. And so the ability to manage your time, especially if you're the chair of a committee or if you're the ranking member, if you happen to be in the minority of a committee, managing your time and the issues that come before you is very important. I think if you have good communication with your constituents, that is truly a positive, and so communication is vitally important as a legislator, meeting with different constituents in your district. But then if you're a committee chair, you also have the responsibility, and it goes back to time management again, of meeting with various groups that may not necessarily be from your district, but they're impacted by the decisions that you might make as a committee chair. For example, when I chaired the Education Division of Appropriations, one of our responsibilities was the funding for higher education. And so you would meet with students that may be attending the University of Minnesota or one of our state universities. They may or may not have been constituents, but you have those statewide responsibilities, so you meet with people literally from around the state. But of course, you pay close attention to your own constituents as well.
If you could go back and visit any time period, what time would you travel to and why?
I'm happy with the current timeline, but if I were to go back in time, Very interesting experience for me was literally my first term many years ago, because you're learning the process. But I'm not one that generally looks to the past very often, other than you know, you have that backlog of experience through the years. But I would guess that being involved currently with issues and having a chance to take a fresh look at the needs of the people of the state of Minnesota. So I would say the time that I would not only want to visit but stay in is the current time frame.